6 hours. So I'm very happy to see them mix it up a bit. The choices they have made for that in terms of Silverstone going to 4 and Bahrain going to 8, let's wait and see. For me, and I'd be interested from your point of view here, MP, not as a journalist, but actually as someone who's been involved with running those cars, mixing up the format, particularly within a particular season, does tend to have some interesting effects on strategy choices. And you know what? People make mistakes, and I quite like it when people make mistakes, because the human aspect of things comes into this one. Is it can wrong step a team or a driver or a strategist, and I do like to actually mix it up. As for the choice about Silverstone, let me just clarify what it was that Gerard can say. And I'm not doing this because he's asked me to. It's because he answered the question that I asked him. And if it's been confusing in the way it's reported, then that's my fault, not his. What he was saying is, yes, absolutely. What he was referring to in the overall fan survey done by motorsport.com, God bless them and all the works, is that did indeed say that people would like to see a mix in format. It didn't say they would like to see a reduction in the length of the races. However, the specific surveys that are done year in, year out at the circuits, and it's certainly done at Silverstone, a number of people have now told me they have filled out that survey, did indeed show that a number of the people, I gather a fairly significant sample of those people, would actually like to see a marginal reduction in the length of that fixture for 2 or 3 reasons. We have had poor weather at times there, with a lot of families that go to that race. It's not the easiest part of the country necessarily to get to for people coming from the major conurbations. So it's not necessarily a surprise that people saw that. Very happy, by the way, that he did say that one of the things they are looking to trial at Silverstone next year is a significant exhibition off and on track of significant historic endurance racing cars. And that comes from the success that we're seeing with this new breed of historic, more modern historic races events. So we've had the Masters Historic Legends, we've had the Global Endurance Legends that debuted at the Le Mans Classic this year with something like 80 cars on display on and off track. If that comes, and by the way, Gerard made it very clear that he would like to see those exhibited by, for the most part, the drivers that drove them in period, I think that would be a massively popular addition to it. As for the point that was made around whether or not the WEC or WSC, as Forest GT would like to see it called, might support a championship within a championship, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's get the future structure of this thing back on track with LMP1 first. I do want to see more blue ribboned events in the FIWC. I think that would be a massive, massive step forward. It's clearly what was intended with the Sebring race. We know that's been massively controversial with a number of people, but I think they are looking for the opportunity to start to think about events you could build into being something greater than 1/9 of the championship. And I think that would be a major step forward. Playing a little bit and seeing what works with race format, actually, I think is a good step towards that. Will they get it right every time? No. I'd say this whichever the championship. Give them the respect for trying something different. Give them the respect for thinking about these things and playing with it, because a number of times when they have tried something a little bit different, it has come out to be better in the long run. So, I am a fan of making sure that race organisers, race promoters are given a little bit of leeway. It doesn't always work. I've been very critical of some of these things, principally that, those of you that listen in regularly will know I'm not a massive fan of some of the changes that have been made at Le Mans and at Spa in the 24-hour races about the way in which strategy has been stripped out. That's a mistake. But you know what? You've got to give something a chance sometimes to see whether or not it flies or it doesn't. I tend to think that the 4-hour race format might well actually be fine at Silverstone. You can get around the track in that particular time. Road America, as you guys know, I've not been before, ever. If they have a 6-hour race there, might be enough to get me on the plane. I like that idea. And if they were going to play with the NAEC and maybe add another round to it, I think they could do far worse, MP. What do you think?
I completely agree. And I guess that's boring. I should be saying, Graham, you idiot. Everything you've just said is the worst possible thing in the world. No, I'm in agreement on this one. Maybe that's why I like you. Let's do this. And for the first time, I'm not joking and saying, well, I won't say we've got 20 minutes to go, but I will say we're getting close to 2 hours in, so let's try and wind down a wee bit. I'm going to grab a couple here from the fun and or personal and or pithy, and
Excellent.
Then dive back and grab a couple that are on the prototype front. Let me go with just this one. Last week on the Week in IndyCar, someone asked about my dream memorabilia, and I happened to mention that I already had it, and it was this just beautiful, incredible card that Dan Gurney sent me, thanking me for an article I'd written that I'd interviewed him for, and how that is just, how do you top getting a personal letter thanking you from your hero? Ian Gent has said, piggybacking off of that, Graham, what is your dream piece of sports car memorabilia? And he also has mentioned you aren't allowed to choose the 1995 Harrods McLaren F1 car.
Damn. I got one of my dream pieces of memorabilia. It's not really memorabilia so much as it's a book. I'm quite a fan of racing books. And it was for my 50th birthday, and it came my way from my good friend, colleague, and business partner, Dave Lord. And it came to him via his late and much lamented friend who passed away many years ago, very early, with the awfulness of his cancer. My very first racing hero was Ronnie Peterson. And Ronnie ghosted a book. And I'm now the very proud owner of a copy of that book signed by Ronnie Peterson.
Wow.
And that, to me, is just all sorts of awesome. I've got all sorts of crap. That's people. I mean, but one of the things that I've got somewhere, I'm not quite sure exactly where it is, but I'll know exactly what it is when I see it. It's a piece of polystyrene. It's a piece of polystyrene that's... when I was at the British Grand Prix with my then very young son, we were standing at the complex just beyond Bridge Corner when Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher came together and went backwards through the corner markers. And that picture was in all the national newspapers, and the following morning we could see ourselves pointing in the direction of two cars disappearing up an escape road. And I've got a couple of pieces of that polystyrene with the rubber on as it was run over by Damon Hill's Williams going backwards. That's there as a little bit of bizarreness. You know what? It's memories, isn't it? It's any little memory. I'm a firm fan of keeping little bits of memory. More or less every media lanyard I've ever had is either in a box in my office or in two places mounted on display in the office just down from where I'm standing at the moment in the house. And every single one of them has got some form of memory, whether or not it's the race, the people, the event, the weather, the perfectly dreadful catering, something. And I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Isn't it all about actually looking back and thinking what great times they were? And memorabilia, I saw what was delivered to you. Was it 2 weeks ago, MP? You got a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm also actually remiss, Graham, and I know a couple of our listeners have written in. It was great to hear that you were able to save the Ronnie Peterson book, but definitely remiss in expressing our sorrow for learning of the fire that broke out in the Goodwin Library. We know that you were very upset. There were at least 3 or 4 you'd yet to color, so we know that all losing those books. Definitely
kept
the low
lines.
point. Yes, so
kept within the lines. But
yeah, if you have some crayons, you might be able to send, or any other racing coloring books. We know Graham's trying to build the library back up. So any help there would be greatly appreciated. I just stole that from Robin Miller, who told that story last week of, I think it was Gordon Johncock at a roast of A.J. Foyt, maybe, or Johnny Rutherford, and that one brought the house down, talking about how sad he was to hear about A.J. and the A.J. Foyt library burning to the ground, and he knows how much he was looking forward to still coloring 3 or 4 of the books he'd yet to get to, but anyways. I'll just throw in, I guess, Ian, and again, I apologize if I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but I have a couple of pieces of sports car memorabilia that are dear to me. I've paid for 2 out of the 3 I'm about to mention. 2 happen to be pieces of rear body work from Nissan GTP cars, and these would be I guess we would call them the large end plates to the rear wings that were mounted within the rear body work. Obviously, there was a point in GTP, especially in the early 90s, where the rear wings kind of sprouted out and upwards into their own piece of real estate. But back for the pieces that I have, they were actually integral in the rear bodywork that came off the car. So these would be the large pieces that fitted to the engine cover on the sides right behind the wheels. And I believe both are autographed by young Mr. Jeff Brabham. The other one that I have, which was an opportunistic find that I could not bend down and pick up, was, I believe, following the 2011 24 Hours of Le Mans, with Alan McNish's hellacious crash on the downhill portion of the Dunlop curves. And if I'm getting the year wrong, whether it was 2011, 2012, it blurs a little bit for me. But was just the top side of the hill when that crash happened. And obviously there was Audi R18 strewn all over. And walked down the hill after. There's obviously a huge amount of debris to clean up. And while they were cleaning it up, how's this? Did see that there were a number of photographers who were reaching down, grabbing bits of strewn R18 parts, and I think at that point the corner marshals grabbed those parts back and just set everybody out, and I could not disagree with that. Walked down the hill, I think got to Tete Rouge maybe, and then walked back probably an hour later. It might have been 2 hours later. Long story short, walking back up the hill near the crash site, just down below it, maybe about 100 feet below, looked down and saw this small, I don't know, slightly bigger than maybe somewhere between a golf ball and tennis ball size of
Alan's bigger than that.
Bodywork, yes. And it was a little piece of the hashtag front nose.
Oh, wow.
It was a piece of the splitter off of Alan's crashed R18, and admittedly, it was the only piece of debris that I saw. So not only did they do an excellent job of truly cleaning up the entire crash site, but I don't know why it was missed. I was just I guess when I tend to walk trackside, I notice that I look down a lot. Like I just I guess that's where my head rests more than it should. I should probably be looking up, considering I'm walking through an accident site where Ann Prophet and her dog was almost killed. So I should have been looking up and being a smart monkey. Instead, I wasn't, and just happened to see this little shiny silver thing, or grayish silver thing, and was like, what the heck is that? Picked it up, and like, oh, and anyways, just stuffed it in my pocket, and off we go. And it's actually sitting somewhere on a bookshelf, hidden away. But yeah, that's the other thing. And I wouldn't say prized. I mean, it's not as if you're like, hey, I got a piece of a $1 zillion race car that was destroyed. But just one of those happened to be in that place and see that one remaining item and be like, well, it's only going to get washed away or forgotten at this point. And so, yeah, so maybe prized is the wrong way to put it, but unique, I would say for sure. I've yet to ask Alan McNish to sign it, though. There's something that tells me that might be a little bit too much.
Oh, he signed a piece of broken bodywork. It wasn't his accident, in fairness. I've got a sizable chunk of a Toyota GT1 on the display case in the office, but together with a piece of Golf Lola Aston Martin that Thomas Enger reduced to its component parts and less on its very first flying lap, wrote the car off. But no, I have to say, Alan is known for a lot of things. Excellent colour commentator nowadays, and